A black man is unjustly humiliated at a luxury car dealership, but when they discover who he is, they are shocked. Jackson had always been a visionary. Since childhood, his passion for cars led him to disassemble and reassemble miniature models, creating unique designs. At 32, he had reached the peak of his career as an automotive designer, working for one of the largest automakers in the United States. His latest project, a luxury car named Apex, was about to be launched. The Apex promised to be a revolution in the automotive market, combining cutting-edge technology with innovative and elegant design. For Jackson, the Apex was not just a car. It was the embodiment of years of hard work, creativity, and passion. That morning, Jackson decided to visit the luxury dealership that would showcase the Apex for the first time. He wanted to see his creation up close, observe the reactions of the first customers, and perhaps even buy one for himself. Dressed in faded jeans, a simple t-shirt, and comfortable sneakers, he headed to the showroom, unconcerned with impressing anyone with his appearance. Upon entering the dealership, Jackson was immediately met with curious and suspicious looks. The salesmen, in their well-tailored suits and shiny shoes, assessed him from head to toe. One of them, a middle-aged man with a forced smile, slowly approached. "May I help you?" the salesman asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Yes, I'd like to see the Apex up close," Jackson replied calmly. The salesman let out a dry laugh and looked at his colleagues, who also laughed. "The Apex, huh? Do you have any idea how much it costs? Maybe you should start with something more affordable." Jackson felt the humiliation and anger bubbling inside, but maintained his composure. He had faced prejudice before, but never so blatantly. Determined not to cause a scene, he simply smiled and nodded. "I know exactly how much it costs," he said calmly, "but thank you for the suggestion." The salesmen continued to ignore him, focusing their attention on customers who seemed more promising. Jackson walked through the showroom, observing the Apex from a distance. His heart swelled with pride seeing his creation in all its glory. The car was indeed a work of art, with elegant lines and an imposing presence. Determined not to let that bitter experience ruin his moment, Jackson left the dealership without revealing his identity. As he returned home, he reflected on what had happened. That was not the first time he faced prejudice because of his simple appearance, but now, with the Apex about to be launched, he had a unique opportunity to do something about it. In the following days, Jackson formulated a plan. Using his contacts at the automaker, he organized a visit to the dealership with some of the company's top executives. He wanted to ensure the situation was appropriately addressed and that the salesman learned an important lesson about respect and professionalism. On the morning of the scheduled day, Jackson dressed more formally but still stayed true to himself. He didn't want to impress with his exterior but rather with what truly mattered: his talent and dedication. He arrived at the dealership accompanied by 3 executives who were aware of the situation and ready to support his cause. As they entered, they were greeted with fake smiles and exaggerated greetings. The salesman, not recognizing Jackson, addressed the executives with all the courtesy that had been lacking during the previous visit. Jackson remained silent, observing and waiting for the right moment to act. While the executives explored the dealership, one of them requested that all employees gather for a special presentation. The salesman, curious and excited, hurried to comply. Jackson knew the moment to reveal the truth was near and that he would finally have the chance to right that wrong. Jackson left the dealership with a mix of anger and determination burning inside him. His mind was swirling, reflecting on the prejudice he had faced. It was time to take action, to turn that humiliation into an opportunity to change the culture within the dealership and perhaps beyond. In the days that followed, Jackson began to formulate a detailed plan. He knew he would need the support of the automaker's top management to make a difference. Fortunately, his exceptional work on the Apex gave him direct access to the company's executives. He contacted Michael Evans, the automaker's CEO, and scheduled an urgent meeting. On the morning of the meeting, Jackson prepared meticulously. He dressed a bit more formally, but still kept his authenticity. He didn't want his appearance to speak louder than his words and actions. Upon arriving at the automaker's imposing building, he was warmly received by Michael and other high-ranking executives. "Jackson, it's always a pleasure to see you," Michael said, shaking his hand firmly. "The Apex is a real milestone for our company, and we owe it to you." "Thank you, Michael. That's what I want to talk about," Jackson replied, his voice firm but calm. He detailed the humiliating experience he had at the dealership, describing how he was treated with disdain and prejudice by the salesman. The executives listened attentively, some visibly shocked and embarrassed. "This is unacceptable," Michael said, clearly disturbed. "We need to take immediate action to address this situation." Jackson agreed and presented his proposal. A surprise visit to the dealership, accompanied by the executives, to directly confront the prejudiced salesman and promote a complete restructuring. Michael and the other executives supported the idea, recognizing the need for a profound cultural change. The day of the visit came quickly. Jackson, Michael, and two other executives headed to the dealership in a convoy of luxury cars, including a shiny Apex at the front. Jackson felt a mix of nervousness and excitement as they approached the store. It was the chance to correct a great injustice and to stand up for the values of respect and inclusion. Upon entering the dealership, they were greeted with broad smiles and exaggerated greetings from the salesman, who did not recognize Jackson. Michael, assuming the role of an important customer, asked to see the Apex. The salesman promptly complied, showcasing the car with enthusiasm. After a few minutes of superficial conversation, Michael requested that all employees gather for a special presentation. The salesman, curious and excited, hurried to comply. Jackson, keeping a bit of distance, watched as Michael began to speak. "We're here today to talk about the Apex," Michael began, looking at the attentive faces of the employees. "But before that, I want to introduce you to someone very special. This is Jackson, the principal designer of the Apex." The salesmen's faces turned pale as they recognized Jackson. An awkward silence filled the room as he stepped forward. "On my previous visit, I was treated with disdain and disrespect simply because of my appearance," Jackson said, his voice firm and clear. "This is unacceptable. Every person who walks through these doors deserves to be treated with dignity and respect." The salesmen lowered their heads, some visibly embarrassed. Michael continued, announcing that the dealership would undergo a complete restructuring. The prejudiced employees would be fired or required to undergo intensive diversity and inclusion training. Jackson would be appointed as a special consultant, tasked with promoting inclusion and diversity in all areas of the company. Jackson felt a wave of relief and satisfaction. He knew that was just the beginning, but it was an important step in the right direction. And so, justice began to prevail, turning a bitter experience into an opportunity for positive and lasting change. Jackson felt his heart race as the dealership employees gathered for the special presentation. Michael Evans, the CEO of the automaker, stood by his side, ready to support the revelation. The salesman, still unaware of Jackson's true identity, smiled with curiosity, waiting for exciting news about the Apex. Michael began speaking, his voice resonating throughout the showroom. "We're here today to celebrate the launch of the Apex, a car that represents the pinnacle of our engineering and design. But before we talk about the car, I want to introduce you to someone very special. This is a unique opportunity to meet the genius behind the Apex, the principal designer who turned a vision into reality." The salesman exchanged confused looks as Michael motioned for Jackson to step forward. "Please welcome Jackson." As Jackson stepped forward, the room fell silent. The salesmen's faces shifted from curiosity to shock as they recognized the man they had treated with disdain days before. Jackson, feeling the weight of the moment, took a deep breath and began to speak. "On my previous visit, I was treated with disrespect and prejudice because of my appearance," Jackson said, his voice firm but filled with emotion. "I didn't reveal my identity at the time, but today I'm here to tell the truth. I am the principal designer of the Apex, the car you are selling." The salesmen were stunned. Some lowered their heads in shame, others stared at Jackson, unable to hide their surprise. Jackson continued, his voice gaining strength with each word. "I understand that not every day do we meet a customer who is also the creator of the product we're selling, but respect and dignity should not be reserved only for those who appear appropriate or wealthy at first glance. Every person who walks through these doors deserves to be treated with courtesy and respect." The automaker's executives, including Michael, nodded in support of each of Jackson's words. The atmosphere was tense, but also filled with a palpable hope for change. "This experience taught me a lot about the values we want to promote as a company," Jackson continued. "Starting today, this dealership will undergo a complete restructuring. Those who showed prejudice and disrespect will be held accountable." Michael intervened. "We are committed to diversity and inclusion. All employees will undergo intensive training to ensure they treat every customer with the respect they deserve. Those who are not willing to align with these values will no longer have a place on our team." The salesmen looked at each other, clearly nervous. One of the younger ones, a boy named Alex, stepped forward. "Jackson, Michael, I would like to personally apologize. I was one of those who treated you badly that day. I am ashamed and regretful. I want to learn and improve." Jackson looked at Alex, seeing sincerity in his eyes. "Alex, change begins with recognizing mistakes. I'm willing to give a second chance to those who truly want to change." The other salesmen began to murmur, some following Alex's example, apologizing and expressing a desire to change. Jackson felt a wave of relief and satisfaction. His goal was not just to punish, but to promote genuine transformation. The restructuring was officially announced, with Jackson being appointed as a special consultant for diversity and inclusion issues. He committed to working closely with the dealership's team to ensure the new standards were met. The story quickly spread across social media, becoming an example of how to deal with prejudice in a constructive and effective way. The following days were filled with intensive training, open discussions, and workshops. Jackson led many of these sessions, sharing his personal experience and inspiring employees to adopt a new mindset. Finally, weeks later, Jackson returned to the dealership to see the results. The atmosphere was completely different. The salesman greeted him with genuine smiles and respect. He felt that a true change had occurred. As he left, Jackson looked at the Apex displayed in the showroom. It was not just a luxury car. It was a symbol of resilience, change, and justice. Jackson knew that was just the beginning, but he was confident he had planted the seed for a more inclusive and respectful future. The restructuring of the dealership was a meticulous process designed to promote a deep and lasting cultural change. Jackson, now the automaker's special consultant, took the lead in executing this plan. He knew it would not be an easy task, but he was determined to turn the bitter experience into an opportunity for growth and learning for everyone involved. On the morning of the first training session, Jackson arrived at the dealership feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. The showroom was quieter than usual. The salesmen gathered in a circle waiting for the session to begin. Jackson noticed that despite the anxious expressions, there was also genuine curiosity on the employees' faces. "Good morning, everyone," Jackson began, his voice firm but welcoming. "We are here to start a new chapter in this dealership. The training we will conduct in the coming weeks is not just a formality. It is an opportunity for us to reflect on our attitudes and grow as professionals and human beings." Michael Evans, the CEO, was also present to show his continued support. He spoke briefly, reinforcing the importance of diversity and inclusion as fundamental pillars of the company. "Respect begins here among us. It is a value that must be practiced every day with every person who walks through our doors," he said, looking directly at each employee. The training began with a series of interactive workshops where the salesmen were encouraged to share their experiences and perceptions. Jackson led a role-playing exercise where each employee had to assume the role of a customer with different backgrounds and appearances. It was a revealing moment for many who began to realize the implicit biases in their attitudes. Alex, the young salesman who had previously apologized, stood out during the activities. He showed a genuine desire to learn and improve, asking insightful questions and actively participating in the discussions. "I never really thought about how my actions could affect someone so deeply," Alex confessed during a feedback session. "This training is opening my eyes." Over the weeks, Jackson observed significant changes. Employees began to treat each other with more respect and empathy, and this was reflected in customer service. The atmosphere in the dealership transformed. Where there was once indifference and superficiality, there was now warmth and authenticity. One day, during a coffee break, Jackson had a deep conversation with Emily, one of the dealership's longest-serving saleswomen. "Jackson, I have to admit that at first, I was skeptical about all this change," she said, looking directly into his eyes. "But now, seeing how we're all transforming, I feel like I'm learning to be a better person, not just a better saleswoman." Jackson smiled, feeling a wave of satisfaction. "Emily, that is exactly the goal. It's not just about selling cars. It's about building relationships based on respect and understanding." The impact of the changes began to be noticed by customers as well. Positive comments began to emerge, highlighting the cordiality and respect in service. The dealership gained a new reputation in the community, becoming an example of how to deal with prejudice constructively. To celebrate the success of the restructuring program, the automaker organized a special event. Michael invited Jackson to be the keynote speaker. During his speech, Jackson reflected on his journey from initial humiliation to the positive transformation he had witnessed. This experience taught me that with determination and support, we can turn any negative situation into an opportunity for growth, Jackson said, looking at the familiar faces that now admired him not only as a brilliant designer but as an inspiring leader. Today, I am proud to be part of a team that values respect and dignity above all. The applause standing, Jackson felt he had achieved something grand, not just for himself, but for everyone who shared that journey of transformation. The dealership was no longer just a workplace, but a symbol of resilience and justice. With a light heart, Jackson left the event knowing that it was just a step in a long journey of positive change. He was ready to continue fighting for a world where every person was treated with the respect and dignity they deserve, and that was a battle he was more than ready to face. The transformed dealership quickly became an example of how cultural change can positively impact a company. Jackson watched with pride as the fruits of his labor spread. The atmosphere in the dealership was now one of mutual respect and genuine collaboration. The salesman, once arrogant and prejudiced, had become more empathetic and welcoming. Jackson, always attentive to details, continued to closely monitor the progress. He was determined to ensure that the changes were lasting. On a sunny morning, he decided to make a surprise visit to the dealership to see how things were going. Upon entering, he was greeted by genuine smiles and warm greetings. "Good morning, Jackson," said Alex, approaching with a sincere smile. "We're happy to see you here." "Good morning, Alex," Jackson replied, feeling at ease. "How are things?" Alex smiled. "Better than ever. Believe it or not, sales have increased. Customers comment on the change in the atmosphere and service. It seems we are finally on the right track." Jackson nodded, satisfied. He watched as Alex and the other salesmen interacted with the customers. Respect and empathy were present in every interaction. It was evident that the training had worked. The salesmen were not just selling cars. They were building relationships based on trust and respect. During the visit, Jackson was approached by Emily, the dealership's longest-serving saleswoman. "Jackson, I'd like to show you something," she said, guiding him to a meeting room. "We're working on a new project. We want to create a mentorship program for young people interested in automotive design and sales." Jackson was impressed. "That's amazing, Emily. Tell me more about the idea." Emily explained that the program aimed to offer opportunities to young people from disadvantaged communities, providing them with training and guidance. "We want to give back to the community what we've learned here. We want to inspire the next generation to dream big and work hard." Jackson was moved. "I am proud of you. This is exactly the kind of initiative we need. Let's make it happen." News of the dealership's transformation and the new mentorship program quickly spread. The local media highlighted the story, and soon the dealership became a national example of inclusion and respect in the workplace. Jackson was invited to speak at conferences and events, sharing his experience and inspiring others to follow the same path. One day, during an interview for a major television network, Jackson was asked about his journey and the impact of the changes. "This experience taught me that true transformation begins with respect and empathy," he said. "When we treat others with dignity, we create an environment where everyone can thrive." It is a lesson I hope spreads throughout the industry and beyond. The dealership continued to thrive. The mentorship program was a success, with many young people participating and benefiting from the opportunities offered. Jackson dedicated himself to supporting the program, spending time with the young people, sharing his knowledge, and encouraging them to pursue their dreams. To celebrate the ongoing success, the automaker organized a special event. Michael Evans, the CEO, gave an emotional speech. "Today, we celebrate more than just financial success. We celebrate the change in attitudes, inclusion, and respect. Jackson, your leadership and determination were key to this transformation. Thank you for showing us the way." Jackson took the stage, feeling a wave of emotion. "This is a collective effort," he said. "Each of you contributed to this change. I am honored to be part of this team and look forward to seeing what more we can achieve together." The applause filled the room. Jackson looked at the audience and saw familiar and new faces, all united by a common goal: to create an environment where everyone is treated with respect and dignity. A month had passed since the initial transformation of the dealership, and the results were extraordinary. The new culture of respect and inclusion had not only increased sales but also strengthened the dealership's and the automaker's reputation. Jackson had become a symbol of positive change, recognized and respected throughout the automotive industry. One sunny afternoon, Jackson decided to make one last visit to the dealership before embarking on a new ambitious project. Upon arrival, he was warmly welcomed by the employees, who were now more than just colleagues. They were a true team united by shared values. "Jackson, it's always a pleasure to see you," Alex said with a sincere smile. "We have a surprise for you." Curious, Jackson was led to the main showroom where the Apex was prominently displayed, surrounded by special decorations. Beside the car, a commemorative plaque had been installed, dedicating that specific model to the visionary who turned dreams into reality. Jackson was visibly moved. "This is amazing," he said, touching the plaque. "Thank you, everyone. This car represents more than just a design. It symbolizes everything we've accomplished together." Emily approached, holding a key. "We thought you should be the first to drive this special Apex. It's a small way to thank you for everything you've done for us." With shining eyes, Jackson accepted the key and got into the car. As he started the engine, he felt a sense of fulfillment and peace. He knew that although it was just a car, it carried with it the hopes and efforts of everyone who had worked to create a culture of respect and inclusion. As he drove through the city streets, Jackson reflected on his journey from prejudice and humiliation to transformation and success. Every step had been worth it. He knew there was still much to do, but he was confident the path was clear. Returning to the dealership, Jackson stepped out of the car and was greeted with warm applause. "Thank you all," he said, his voice full of emotion. "This is just the beginning. Keep working with respect and empathy, and together we can achieve great things." And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a clear vision for the future, Jackson said goodbye, knowing he had left an indelible mark on everyone's life there. The journey continued, but he was ready to face any challenge, always guided by the values that had transformed his life and the lives of those around him.